This is quarter 2, week 4, and we are talking about how to eliminate fragments and run-ons in order to create complete sentences. The first thing you need to know is what is a fragment. A fragment is an incomplete sentence. In order for something to be considered a sentence, it must have 3 things. It must have a subject, it must have a verb, and it must be a complete thought. Fragments are missing one of these 3 things, and fragments are not considered complete sentences, so we want to avoid them in our writing. First off, fragments, in order to be a complete sentence, the sentence must have a subject. If it's missing a subject, it is a fragment. So here's some examples. Ate the pizza on the table. That's not a complete sentence because it doesn't tell us who or what is doing the action of eating the pizza. Is really old. Again, we're not sure who or what is doing the action. So those are both fragments. In order to be a complete sentence, a sentence must have a verb. These phrases are missing a verb. My mom and her cat Linus. In that fragment, we're left thinking, what do my mom and her cat Linus do? What's the action they are completing? The second one, in the middle of the night, does not have a verb either. In the middle of the night, what? Did someone do something? What happened? Leaves us with questions. Those are both examples of fragments. And the last thing is that a fragment must be a complete thought. So, we talked 2 weeks ago about phrases and clauses. And clauses have a subject and a verb, but are not complete thoughts. So, they cannot be complete sentences. When everyone finishes their test. When everyone finishes their test, what? We're left with a question. And because I saw the movie last week. These are both fragments. Usually, clauses that contain a noun and a verb but are not complete sentences begin with conjunctions such as these. After, while, unless, before, although, until, because, even though, if, once, since, and whether. These are not the only conjunctions, but these are some of the most common ones. If I were you, I might write these down just because it helps to have a list to refer back to. Many times we write fragments because that's how we speak. However, when we're writing, we want to avoid fragments. Sometimes we use fragments accidentally because we mispunctuate our sentences, even though it may look like a complete sentence. I learned a trick while I was in school, though. If you read the paragraph backwards, one sentence at a time, it makes it easier to spot fragments. Now, reading through that paragraph, I'm not sure if you noticed, but there are several fragments. Let's test my theory and see if we can catch them. We're going to read this paragraph backwards, one sentence at a time. It makes it easier to spot fragments. That actually is a complete sentence. If you read the paragraph backwards, one sentence at a time, however, is not. It is a clause. Begins with the word if. So those two, well, the first is a fragment, the second was a sentence, need to be combined. I learned a trick while I was in school, though. Complete sentence. Even though it may look like a complete sentence. That's another clause, so it's not a complete sentence. Because we mispunctuate our sentences is another fragment. But sometimes we use fragments accidentally is a complete sentence. So sometimes if you flip it around and read the sentences out of order, it's easier to pick out which ones are fragments. Run-on sentences have more than one complete thought. They're harder to catch unless you go through and identify each subject and predicate. Be careful not to make a list of sentences, usually separated by commas. She went to the store, she bought a dress, she went home. Instead of this, we should either combine the sentences using and, or we should put a period and a capital letter at the end of every complete thought. There are 3 ways to fix a run-on sentence. You can fix it with a comma and a fanboy, with a semicolon, or with a period and a capital letter. Those are your only 3 options for fixing a run-on sentence. Okay, the first one, with a comma and a fanboy. Fanboys are coordinating conjunctions. It stands for and, nor, but, or, yet, so. I think it's easier just to call them fanboys instead of coordinating conjunctions, but it's important to know that that's what they are. Fanboys, F-A-N-B-O-Y-S, is the beginning letter of our 7 coordinating conjunctions. So, in order to take a run-on sentence, for example, Sally went to the store, Tommy bought a book, we want to choose a fanboy that makes sense and put a comma before it. So instead of Sally went to the store, Tommy bought a book, we're going to say Sally went to the store, comma, and Tommy bought a book. So we add a comma and we add a fanboy to make it a complete sentence. The second way to fix it, and probably the easiest way to fix it, is with a semicolon. However, you have to make sure that the 2 thoughts go together. They have to be related in one way. So, Sally went to the store, Tommy bought a book, can be changed to Sally went to the store, semicolon, Tommy bought a book. It's not my favorite use of the semicolon because usually when you use a semicolon, the 2 thoughts have to be directly related, but it is a way to fix a run-on sentence. And the last one is with a period and a capital letter. You can change a run-on into 2 complete sentences by adding a period. Sally went to the store, the boy bought a book, becomes Sally went to the store, period, capitalize the, boy bought a book. So, the 3 ways to fix a run-on sentence are with a comma and a fanboy, a semicolon, or a period and a capital letter. Our vocab this week. The first word is peevish. It means feeling or showing irritation. The peevish man was frustrated with his wait time at the DMV. Grueling, very difficult, requiring great effort. You could say that my class is grueling at times. But climbing the Alps was a grueling expedition, meaning it was very difficult. They had to work really hard to climb the Alps. Anonymous means not named or identified. The anonymous writer always used a fake name. Some of you like to turn in your papers anonymously without your name on them, but unfortunately you don't get credit for that. To trace is to follow or outline an argument or a story. I was able to trace the clues back to the murderer. And retort is to reply sharply. When the mother asked if the boy had cleaned his room, he retorted that he was above cleaning. So it's kind of a smart alecky response. That is the end of today's notes. Make sure you write your 20-word summary and place this in the back of your grammar folder.